Tonight, 2 Saskatoon police officers launched their own podcast, but their employer is tight-lipped about it.
You could hear the windows shattering and exploding from the fire being so intense.
Multiple people are sent to hospital after a house fire in Regina. And how a rise in patriotism could keep the Snowbirds flying high.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Wednesday, July 2nd, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. I'm Ethan Williams. Thank you for joining us. 2 Saskatoon police officers are now in the podcast game. Their show is called The Quiet Fight, and they're talking about things police don't usually talk about publicly. And as Dan Zakreski reports, the Saskatoon Police Service is keeping quiet about the podcast.
I'm like, so this went through my pelvis, I'm going to be bleeding into my pelvis, and so I came to terms with the fact right then and there, I was like, I'm dead, I'm not going to survive.
It's episode 6 of the Quiet Fight podcast, and Sam Kosolowski is telling Saskatoon cops Dylan Kemp and Jason Garland what it felt like getting shot. Kosolowski, a Regina police officer, was accidentally shot by a fellow cop while executing a search warrant last year.
I have 2 choices right now, so like I can lay here and panic and freak out and start like begging nobody and saying like, this is so bad, I'm gonna die, I'm so scared, and that could be the legacy that's left and how this ends. Or like I think the exact terminology that I've said to people as we talk about this is, I'm gonna fight till the lights go out.
Kemp and Garland started their podcast in mid-May. Now they want, in their own words, to quote, talk honestly about what the job does to your mind, your body, your identity as a man. Now they invited Kozlowski onto the podcast to talk cop to cop about what it's like getting shot. Now the 2.5-hour episode on YouTube has been viewed more than 1,600 times. The first episode came out audio only on May 15th. Its audience has grown steadily, and they've since branched out to YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. They even sell a line of Quiet Fight t-shirts, hoodies, and coffee mugs. But the Saskatoon Police Service does not want to talk about the podcast or Kemp and Garland. It refused to answer questions on its social media policy, whether it approved the podcast, or even whether Kemp and Garland are active members of the police force.
So in that moment, when
the officers did not respond to requests from CBC for an interview, but the president of the Saskatoon Police's Union knows about the podcast and confirms Kemp and Garland are members of the association. He says it's valuable for police to share their experiences.
I think that the community expects their officers to be human. And if they have a voice, and it's a personal voice, and it's not transferring confidential information, it's not giving away operational information of the service, and it's being dealt with in a delicate yet frank manner, I could see how we would still let that go on from our perspective. It's important. We can't stifle. If people are suffering, we can't stifle their voice. We have to give them a chance to speak, to say that they need help, to talk about their experiences and hopefully get better.
Sam Kozlowski did get better, and he's back at work in Regina now. Regina Police didn't say anything about its investigation into his shooting until we asked about the podcast. They say that it was accidental and the situation didn't warrant punishment or discipline. Dan Zakreski, CBC News, Saskatoon.
Several people have been taken to hospital after a house fire in Regina's Rosemont neighborhood.
It started off in the living room and then it got more intense and it started to rise up into the bedrooms in the top floor, and then you could hear the windows shattering and exploding from the fire being so intense.
Firefighters were called to this home on Rosemont Crescent around 8:20 Wednesday morning. They found 2 dogs inside the home, both of which died in the fire. 6 people, including 2 children, were taken to hospital with injuries.
4 of them were taken to the hospital for precautionaries to check for smoke inhalation. 2 were considered critical but stable, so with smoke inhalation and significant burns.
There's no word on what caused the fire or the estimated cost of the damage. An investigation into all of that is now underway. New wildfires in northwest Saskatchewan have forced almost 200 people to evacuate. That includes the communities of Lac La Plonge, the Lac La Plonge Reserve, and the Bear Creek subdivision.
The majority of these fires that started on the west side were a result of the storms that came through that did help the province with those big fires by bringing precipitation, but with them came thousands of lightning strikes.
The community of Beauval, meanwhile, is on standby for an evacuation. The SPSA says some fires are threatening road access to remote communities. Well, the official opposition is slamming the province's latest fiscal update. Saskatchewan finished the 2024-25 fiscal year with a nearly $250 million deficit. That's an improvement of $24 million from the budget, but the numbers are being harshly criticized by NDP finance critic Trent Wotherspoon. He took the province to task for releasing the financial update on Monday, just a day before Canada Day.
We see a government here in the way they're releasing information that's really trying to avoid any level of scrutiny and not being accountable for their failures. So you see a government trying to quietly release this massive miss on the budget and a bad financial position that they've put us in.
Wotherspoon says the government's decision to grow the provincial debt by $1.3 billion is an example of how the Sask party isn't doing what's right. But the government has said increasing the debt allowed it to finance the construction of new schools, hospitals, and roads. It's been a roller coaster of a few days on the tariff front between Canada and the U.S. Trade talks are ultimately back on between the two countries. And as Jeremy Warren reports, local industries caught in the middle are weighing in on the trade disruption.
The White House says Canada caved in, but the trade talks are back on. Ottawa's last-minute decision to scrap its proposed tax on U.S. tech companies paved the way to resume negotiations. It's the latest twist in Canada's ongoing trade war with President Donald Trump. The two sides have imposed steel and aluminum tariffs on each other. Local businesses are pleased to see talks resume.
We truly believe that we're a fantastic trade partner for the U.S. and have been for a long time. And so we'd like to see things revert to where they were before all the tariff conversations started a few months back. And we've been enjoying free trade with the U.S. for over 50 years. And so we'd hope it to continue just the same.
The U.S. and Canada want to reach a new trade deal by July 21st, but Trump broke off talks last week and said they wouldn't restart until Canada ditched its digital services tax. It would have seen companies like Amazon, Google, Uber, and Airbnb pay 3% on revenues from Canadian users. Trump's constant trade threats do not leave local egg producers feeling confident.
Whether it be from tariffs or supply chain disruptions or geopolitical issues, anytime there's a disruption in that normal trade, we as producers feel the effects almost immediately, and it's usually financially that we feel the effects of that.
So that's one major negotiation roadblock seemingly removed before this month's trade deal deadline. But Trump might not be done yet. The next possible U.S. trade target? Canada's supply management system for the dairy industry. Jeremy Warren, CBC News, Saskatoon.
A new bus service has officially launched in Saskatchewan. German-based Flixbus is running a route that connects stops in the province and goes on into Alberta. The route leaves Regina daily at 9 a.m. and goes to Saskatoon and North Battleford before traveling on to Edmonton and Red Deer, finally arriving in Calgary around 10:45 at night. There's also a reverse route that leaves Calgary early in the morning with a final stop in Regina around 8:30 at night. Flixbus is the latest in a string of busing companies that have tried to serve Saskatchewan since STC's closure in 2017, but it doesn't make stops in smaller communities like STC did. One expert says expanding the service to rural communities will be difficult.
There's always going to be routes that are not economically viable. There's always going to be pockets of the population that if we went with a strictly business perspective, there would be no reason why we should provide the service to them.
Flixbus says it's expecting strong ridership among budget-conscious riders. It will be competing directly with Rider Express, which operates along the same route. Well, this is just one of the new activities you can take part in when you visit downtown Regina this summer. There's also some exercise and dance sessions, lunch and learns, pop-up performances. It's all part of Regina Downtown Summer in the Square program, featuring programs in Pat Fiacco Park and Victoria Park. Stay with us. We're back after the break. Representatives from Canada's auto industry and the big three automakers were in Ottawa to meet with Prime Minister Mark Carney.
We'll be discussing EV mandates, of course, as well as a range of other policies to make sure the sector succeeds.
Do you think that's sustainable, though?
Well, the EV mandate itself is not sustainable. The targets that have been established cannot be met, and that will be part of the discussion.
The talks come as the Liberal government prepares to resume trade negotiations with the Trump administration. The auto sector is dealing with a 25% tariff on U.S. imports. The Prime Minister's office says it is focused on securing the best deal for Canadian workers and industries. If no agreement is reached, Canada is planning countermeasures against the U.S. tariffs. Well, they are a familiar sight in Canadian skies and a favorite at air shows across the country. But the Snowbirds are flying on borrowed time. As the federal government weighs whether to replace its aging aircraft, a surge in national pride may make the difference. Sarah Onyango has that story.
To fly in tight formation, you need to be the best of the best. For more than half a century, the Snowbirds have been a source of national pride and a way to promote the Canadian Armed Forces.
The teamwork, just the aerobatics, the jets, everything, it's kind of represents everything you imagine in flying in the military. So that was something that was very exciting to me.
But the Snowbirds' future is up in the air. The CT-114 Tudor jets are old and expensive. Production stopped in 1966, and they were initially supposed to be retired 15 years ago, but keep getting extensions.
The aircraft that are still flying, the dozen aircraft that are still flying, need to cannibalize other aircraft somewhere in a boneyard, in a graveyard of aircraft, to maintain the flight status of the current Snowbirds.
The Department of National Defense confirmed the jets are scheduled to be retired from service in 2030. But what replaces them, or if the Snowbirds fly on at all, remains up in the air.
If we replace the CT-114 Tudor aircraft with a modern jet fighter or a modern jet trainer, will the Canadian public agree to pay $1 billion or $1.5 billion to do that?
In the face of recent threats to Canadian sovereignty from U.S. President Donald Trump, there's been a surge in patriotism, something some say could save the Snowbirds from the chopping block. Captain Katie Clapp remembers seeing a Snowbird show when she was a little girl and being inspired to dream big.
It shows them that they can do whatever they want, and it doesn't matter if they're 6 years old or they're 20 years old or they're a girl or they're a boy or whatever. If they decide that they can do something, there's a way to make that happen.
And as captains continue to lead their teams in shows across the country, they hope they can keep reminding the nation why they're worth investing in. Sarah Onyango, CBC News, Regina.
Well, lots of Canadian pride was on display Tuesday as Canada Day celebrations took place across Saskatchewan.
You know, Regina Beach is a small community, but we pull together to celebrate many, many things throughout the year. And we're just proud of who we are and what we do. So lots of volunteers come out, and that's just what Regina Beach is all about.
Streets of Regina Beach to take in the town's Canada Day parade. There was also a pancake breakfast and arts festival, among other activities. And of course, it was a great day for a swim, with the beach packed with people.
29 years ago today, as a member of Troop 8, I Started my first day of training in the RCMP, and so the very first day I was welcomed by Red Surge and marching bands, and I thought, this is surreal.
And it was an evening of celebrating tradition at the RCMP Training Academy in Regina. Tuesday marked the return of the sunset ceremony, a display of RCMP drills and music, as well as the unfurling of a giant Canada flag flanked by children who attended the ceremony. The sunset ceremony will be performed every Tuesday until July 22nd. And weather specialist Helena Mahalik joins us now. Some great weather for Canada Day, Helena, but some stormy weather as well over that long weekend.
Yes, Ethan, we saw some stormy weather over the long weekend. I talked to Environment Canada, and they are looking to investigate and see if they will confirm 8 tornadoes or funnel clouds, some of both, and most of that is actually just from Saturday. We're going to see the stormy weather continue. Let's take a look at what's going on right now in the province. If you're watching live Wednesday night, there are severe thunderstorm warnings in effect in the north for areas around Ile-la-Crosse, as well as the RM of Lucky Lake, and even in the south for areas like Rosetown. The main threats include strong wind gusts and hail that's anywhere from dime to ping pong shaped. We are seeing some of these storms and more severe weather due to the intense heat that's been going on in the province. Places like Maple Creek, take a look at that, 35 degrees, but with the humidex, it actually maybe felt more like 37. We're going to continue to see some of this extreme heat over the next few days. We are seeing heat warnings in effect for areas of the southwest, areas like Moose Jaw, Swift Current, and we are going to see this continue for another day. And into Friday, we're still going to see some warm temperatures, but it's going to be in the high 20s. And then as we get into Saturday, we're going to see a cold front come in, cooling temperatures down back to seasonal and bringing us some much needed rain. So as for Thursday, we're going to see some of that rain begin. Areas around Regina in the south up into the La Ronge area are going to get the most severe. It could look like quarter to golf ball sized hail and strong winds with gusts up to 90 kilometers an hour. The rest of south and central Saskatchewan areas, west central like Saskatoon, Moose Jaw, up into the north could get dime sized hail and up to 70 kilometers an hour wind gusts. We have seen our forest fire and smoke situation worsen over the long weekend, and we know that rain is a good thing, but a lot of these fires were actually started Monday due to lightning strikes, so we know that the risk of some lightning with the humidity might make things feel worse. The most intense of that smoke is going to be around the La Ronge and Buffalo Narrows areas. The north is going to get some rainfall, though, over the next few days. We're going to see that Thursday for areas in and around Stony Rapids. And as we continue to Friday, we're going to continue to see that in that area specifically. The rest of the province in for a more clear day. And into Saturday, we're going to see that more in the southwest, Ethan. So we're definitely keeping an eye on the storms associated in the north due to the fires.
Yeah, something to watch closely. Helena, thank you so much.
Thanks, Ethan.
Well, some changes are coming to what does and doesn't go in your recycling bin if you live in Regina. Coffee cups, ice cream cartons, tape dispensers, and coffee pods are among the new items you now can put in your blue bin. But foam packaging, chip bags, and plastic wrap are some of the items you're now supposed to throw in the garbage instead. Another change is to glass containers. Those can now either go in your garbage bin or be taken to your local Sarcan depot. The changes come as the city hands over its recycling processing duties to Sask Recycles, but it does not mean the nonprofit will be replacing the Mterra recycling facility near Regina.
We're not here to build our own sorting facilities and run our own trucks, but rather engage with the expertise in the private sector that already exists in order to get that work done.
The city says there also won't be any changes to your blue bin collection schedule. It is also launching a social media campaign to make sure people know which items go where. Well, this zoo in southwestern Germany is finding ways to help its animals weather a persistent heat wave. After a nice cold shower, frozen treats are like extra icing on the cake. Contrary to popular belief, by the way, polar bears can handle heat like most other animals, provided they have a chance to cool down later. Germany saw its hottest day so far this year on Wednesday as temperatures hit 37 degrees. Stay with us. We have more news and another look at our hot forecast when we come back. Welcome back. A woman from Saskatoon is one of the latest athletes to swim across the English Channel. On Monday, Erin Bowers, a long-distance swimmer, swam for over 16 hours to reach the French coast from England. Bowers says she swam more than 40 kilometers straight at one point during her swim, battling strong tides and frigid water to make it across. It was her second attempt at the crossing after having to cancel last September due to bad weather.
Coming into France, that final tide was really hard to push through. I was sort of swimming in place for almost 2 hours, where I was hardly moving at all. Just trying to keep my stroke rate up, just trying to keep my arms moving. So the end of the swim was really tough.
Bowers says she planned the original swim to coincide with the anniversary of her father's death and her 50th birthday. As part of this swim, she raised money for Canadian Tire's Jump Start program, which provides sporting equipment for underprivileged children. An incredible feat by Erin, and I don't know about a swim in the English Channel, Helena, but maybe a nice dip in the beach, in the lake is maybe in order with all this hot weather that we're having?
Yeah, it's definitely the week to get to the lake, to get to the pool if you can. We're in for a few more days of heat. Let's take a look at the forecast for Regina. We are in for 2 more days of some heat, especially Thursday. Temperatures over 30 degrees and overnight lows closer to 20 degrees. We're going to see a breezy day Friday, but as we get into the weekend, temperatures cooling down even below seasonal as that rain comes in. And into next work week, we're going to see temperatures jump back up to around seasonal and a chance of some thunderstorms. And as we get later into the week, we're going to see those heat rise back up closer to that 30-degree mark and overnight lows above seasonal for this time of year. Saskatoon will also experience some heat, but not quite as much. We are seeing temperatures around 30 degrees Thursday, and into the rest of the week, we are going to see temperatures cool down into the weekend and some cloudy conditions as we get into next work week. We're going to see a few days of rain, but temperatures will still be jumping back up closer to 30 degrees as we get later into the week, and overnight lows will be above seasonal. So Ethan, it's definitely not ideal if you don't have an air conditioner like me in your home.
Yeah, well, there you go. Yeah, heat warning's definitely the first sure sign of summer in Saskatchewan.
Yeah, maybe just staying far away from the heat.
Yeah, good idea. Helena, thank you.
Thanks.
That is it for us. For News Anytime, you can head to our website or YouTube channel. You can also download the CBC News app on your smartphone or tablet. Thanks so much for watching. Stay cool.